When did you last feel something so real it couldn't be explained? Did you stay there, in the center of the swirl? Or did you run back to the edge where it's safe and say, wow, that was intense? Are you here to be rearranged? Or are you here to watch others fall apart and call it art?
Are you the altar or the analyst? Has yourself ever begged to be unmade? This is not a question for the civilized, for the soft-skinned tourists of the soul. The image of the swirl is a primordial symbol, seen in dervish dancing, galaxies, fingerprints, whirlpools, hurricanes. The one who swirls surrenders to a force beyond reason, centrifugal loss of self. This is the mystic path, the initiatory plunge, where the body, mind, and narrative are cracked open. The dancer is undone. The philosopher will read thousands of books about samadhi and ego death, but stay intellectually insulated. It's because they consume ecstasy secondhand. They frame experience rather than dissolve into it. And it's okay. There is a part in yourself who is the historian of your identity. It wants order. And there is also a numinous self. It wants wholeness, even if that means devastation. The experiencer surrenders to archetype, such as the lover, the fool, or the mystic, while the observer analyzes these roles from a distance, terrified of possession. To experience life is to risk being claimed by it. You can chant about emptiness, or you can fall into it. One of the easiest ways to experience life directly has been a ritual. For many eons, a ritual was the space where life was entered. Through dance, drumming, and often fasting, participants were entering altered states. They were then possessed, in the sense of being taken over by something older and more real than the ego. But in the modern world, ritual has become spectacle. We attend ceremonies as audiences, we film weddings. The participatory, the sweaty, the transformative has become an object of consumption. In anthropology, Victor Turner called this liminality, the sacred in-between where transformation happens. In our world, we suppress liminality and replace it with simulacra. We simulate transformation without passing through the fire. We want the effects of experience without the cost. True ritual is kind of dangerous. It fractures identity, it wounds, it often lacks tidy resolution. To experience flow, you must disintegrate. You must allow your identity to fall apart. That's why many people flirt with experience but return to thinking. They do not want to be erased, even briefly. In the natural world, survival demands a constant tension between engagement and observation. Predators are immersed in the immediacy of experience. They chase, pounce, kill, and feed. Their nervous systems are wired for acute focus and limbic arousal. Human beings evolved with both of those capacities. The neocortex allowed us to step back, reflect, and delay gratification. But the older parts, the brainstem, the vagus nerve, the gut, remain wired for direct, visceral life. The experiential self is a creature, while the observing self is an algorithm running in meat. When we read Krishnamurti and he talks about the observer, we think we know what he means. We assume it is that self in us that is watching our actions. But when Krishnamurti talks about the observer, he does not mean some higher, detached witness floating above the chaos. He references the illusion of sense of separateness itself. He says, until that sense of separation is dissolved, you're always trapped in this cycle of duality. At this moment in human history, most of us live in a dissociation loop, where bodily truth is suppressed by conceptual mastery. We eat information instead of meat. We speak of trauma instead of trembling. We are biologically capable of real presence, but we've outsourced it to screens. To return to experience is, biologically, to return to risk. That's to say, the risk of injury, intimacy, maybe emotional overwhelm. It is also to return to aliveness. To experience is to break the membrane of reflection and enter into the thickness of now. But our entire philosophical tradition, especially post-enlightenment, has prioritized the observer self, the cogito, the rational evaluator, the subject who dissects the object of the world, which I am not saying is a failure of our species. But we see that even consciousness itself, in analytic philosophy, is studied like a puzzle outside the self. We want to understand awareness without being aware. It is a perverse reversal. We stand beside life trying to diagram its mechanics instead of plunging into its mystery. To experience directly is to smell a peach and feel it rather than noting the olfactory receptors firing. To feel shame, not define it. Philosophy becomes sterile when it loses its dirt. The real philosopher must risk madness to find truth, not just clarity. There is no light in a dissection, only ghosts. In non-dual philosophy, Advaita, Dzogchen, even quantum-informed mysticism, the division between observer and observed is an illusion. The moment you observe something, you have already split the world. But direct experience is the collapse of the binary. There is no watcher. There is only this, unfiltered, unmediated being. Reaching this point requires a long unlearning. The mind must exhaust itself. The observer self must recognize its futility. And then, in a moment of clarity or despair, it drops. And what remains is not you seeing, but seeing itself. Not you dancing, but dance happening. So, I will ask you again, are you sitting on the bank talking about the river's depth, or have you stepped in and felt your name float away? I am sure you know about famous two-step tango we've all been caught up in since the dawn of dualistic thinking. The world loves its binaries, doesn't it? Good, evil, light, dark, left, right, male, female. We've been marinated in these opposites like a chicken in a barbecue sauce. Why are we so obsessed with beginnings and ends? Every story we tell has a start and a finish. But what happens in the middle, where everything's colliding and fermenting? The in-between space is where things actually breathe, morph, and collapse. There are no clean lines. There's no neatness. There's just constant unfolding. The moment we collapse the spectrum of experience into two extremes, we limit ourselves to two options. We miss all the potential nuances, all the 72 shades of gray. Think of a rainbow. It's a spectrum of color, a glorious gradient. To try to grasp that in a binary framework is to misunderstand the fullness of what's in front of you. In Kafka's short story A Hunger Artist, the protagonist fasts in a cage, observed by crowds. Over time, fewer people care. He is eventually forgotten, but he continues his fast, because he never found food he liked. The inner observer can be like Kafka's Hunger Artist, obsessed with purity, watching experience like something unsanitary. But true awakening is not fasting from the world. It's eating the world and realizing you are it. The observer, obsessed with non-attachment, becomes a dry ghost, hovering over life. The observer is a liminal engine, a generator of thresholds, a furnace where phenomena are pulled through the sieve of cognition. The observer is not a blank slate or a detached screen, but an alchemical filter, rich with texture, soaked with myth, swollen with ancestral residue. Every act of seeing is also a ritual of digestion. The observed is devoured, metabolized, broken down by the acids of interpretation, historical inertia, and psychic thirst. In the ancient world, the observer was a ritual position, often tied to the sacred. In Babylonian astronomy, the priest-observer wasn't studying the stars like a detached scientist. He was coaxing messages from the divine machine of the heavens, with himself as the necessary hinge. The observer was part of a circuitry between cosmos and city. Observer was the organ through which the sky could speak. The stars didn't shine on their own. They glowed for the observer, in precise, orchestrated symbiosis. So essentially, most astronomers and priests are a human node within a complex cosmic network where heaven and earth are inseparably entangled. The Babylonian sky was understood as a divine mechanism, a cosmic clockwork, but one that operated both by deterministic laws and also by symbolic resonance. In the act of observing, the priest activated the cosmic meaning. The observer, in this sense, was inseparable from the observed. The stars only held meaning through the priest's ritualized observation. The priest was a translator of fate, standing at the threshold between the human and the divine, reading the patterns in the sky, not as detached data points, but as a living language whose meaning was activated by his presence and ritual knowledge. This blurs the line between observer and observed. They co-emerge in a dance of signification.
The world is not only stranger than we suppose, it's stranger than we can suppose. Because the act of supposing is itself part of the system being supposed. So, when you look out at the world, you are looking at your own headless condition. To see the universe as yourself is to live in wholeness,